Big week, week 13 on the docket. Thanksgiving games, hot and heavy, fresh out the oven. We are going through every single game on the slate. And we got a big one because there are no bye weeks coming up. And we are going to label every fantasy running back as a must start, a strong start, a dub flex, an L flex, or a straight cone. All right. We swapped out the must sit as per requested by the comments and as per requested by my brain. If you're a cone, you are unstartable. And I also had a question about dub flex versus L flex. I feel like that is the most self-explanatory thing of all time. Dub would stand for win. L would stand for lose. In Gen Z TikTok commentary, dub is a good thing. L is a bad thing. Okay? I think we can move on forward to the Thanksgiving games, the first of which we have Chicago versus Detroit. Chicago is in Detroit. This is a 10-point spread, despite Chicago playing better under the new offensive coordinator. It's a 48.5-point total. All right. The very first running back that we are, kind of thinking about here is David Montgomery because he hurt his shoulder on Sunday, but all reports seem to point towards it not being a big deal for this game. Okay. And he should be ready to roll. People want to say, he's banged up. It's a short week. I wouldn't expect much out of Demont. Those are the types of situations you get yourself in overthinking this shit. Demont's a beast. Dan Campbell came out and said he wants to get Demont plenty of work against his old team. Like, he actually himself bought into the narrative. This is not just Twitter making things up. Dan Campbell sees that stuff, and he wants those things to come to fruition, okay? So, Demont, Jahmyr Gibbs, going against a Chicago run defense that has not been good. They both immediately go into the must-start category for me, okay? And the thing about Demont is if he goes over one single yard on Thursday, you win on Underdog because Underdog is giving away probably no short of 10 free squares this weekend, right? They will have a free square for each of the Thanksgiving games, the Friday, Black Friday game, the Sunday slate at 1 o'clock, 4 o'clock, and the night games, as well as Monday night. Like, literally 10 free squares are coming at you over Thanksgiving weekend. You will just be giving up free money if you don't get on Underdog, okay? And you get these free squares by depositing $10 using our code. All right, download the Underdog Fantasy app. It's the first link in the description. Use code BDGE. When you deposit $10, you will get a deposit bonus, and then you will start to just get free squares thrown at your face all day on Turkey Day, okay? Make sure you turn notifications on because they will send you updates as soon as they drop the free squares on there too. So just free bets all day long, free money for you, all right? Chicago plus 10 here. On that note, with those running backs, you have Swift, who has really not performed that well recently outside of big plays that he, gets every other week. Detroit is obviously a very, very tough run defense. They've got that front with DJ Reader and Ali McNeil that are very stout. However, I think Swift is a fine play. I'm going to throw him into the strong start category. He's getting a lot of work. I think as 10-point underdogs, this is a spot where he'll probably be relatively involved in the passing game. We have seen this offense have more success on a down-to-down basis, more consistency with Thomas Brown at OC. So don't expect a lot of success via the ground, but I do expect like a decent PPR play for DeAndre Swift. So he's not a must start for me. I think he's probably more in like the RB 15 to 20-ish range, but still a strong start. Roschon Johnson has become the goal line back, so I guess like you could do worse, but I don't really want to bank on like a 6 to 8 point ceiling right now. So Roschon's going to jump into the L flex category for me. Moving down on Thanksgiving, we have the New York Giants at Dallas, 3.5-point favorites. Dallas is 37-point total. So the game environment is disgusting in this one. Both defenses are really, really bad against running backs. Fantasy points per game allowed to the running backs. They are both bottom 4 in the NFL, or top 4, most generous. EPA per rush rank, we have the worst team and the second worst team right now. So we can expect a lot of success on the ground. I don't know how much success we can expect for the offenses overall. We do have to, hear word on whether or not Drew Lock or Tommy DeVito is under center. I think we're all hoping for Drew Lock. I think for Malik Neighbors, we want Drew Lock. I think for Tyrone Tracy, we want Drew Lock. On that note, Tyrone Tracy has been a godsend for people that picked him up. However, the man cannot hold on to the fucking ball. He has fumbled so many times recently that it's making me a little bit nervous about what we can expect going forward. I still think he's a very strong start because if he can hold on to the ball and nothing changes in the backfield, then Tracy has immense upside against Dallas. His terrible defense. If Drew Lock plays, I like the stability of the offense a little bit more. So Tracy is still a strong start for me. When we move over to the other side of the ball, like Devin Singletary is obviously a cone. Rico Dowdle is getting a ton of work. He's getting any goal line opportunities that they have. He is involved in the passing game to an extent. He's kind of like Tyrone Tracy, but He's just getting less scoring opportunities, doesn't make explosive plays, and the offense overall is just not good. So it's not an environment I like to be in, but you could do worse. So he's not going to be a strong start for me, even against the New York Giants. He's going to be a dub flex because I think you can expect 15 touches against a shitty defense in New York there. And it's a game script that they are supposedly supposed to, semi-handle their opponents. Moving down to Miami and Green Bay. Green Bay, 3.5-point favorites, 47 total. This is a spot for Josh Jacobs that he obviously jumps into a must-start category. Miami's defense has been much better and getting really strong as of late. That being said, though, you're going to sit Josh Jacobs? Absolutely not. I know, again, this is like a David Montgomery situation where people are going to overthink this and try to be too cute and think they have an edge on something here where it's like, oh, Jacobs is coming off of a 26-carry game on a shortened week. Like, it's fucking Josh Jacobs. The dude is super tough. He's going to get 20-plus touches in this one. Again, the game environment will be a very, very cold one, which maybe you want to factor that into Miami and Devon Achane, but this is a running back preview video, so Josh Jacobs is a must-start. Devon Achane is a must-start. Everybody else in Miami, I do think that a lot of the reason they invested into the running backs this offseason, re-signing Raheem Mostert and drafting Jalen Wright, was for this type of weather, November, December, where instead of having to lean on Tua to a very heavy degree, this is why they brought those guys in so that they can have success on the ground. Their offensive line, I don't think is good enough to really control the game script in that sense. But I do think we might see a heavier run script for Miami. Take with that what you want. I don't think either of them. I think Mostert and Jalen Wright both fall into the cone category regardless. Move over to Black Friday. We got KC, 12-point favorites right now. Honestly, that feels low. I think this opened at 13.5 and it's moved down. 42.5 total. KC should dominate this game. For Vegas, we do have some updates from practice yesterday because it's a Friday game. We do get practice reports on Tuesday. It was a walkthrough. Alexander Mattison was limited. Zamir White was out for practice, a DNP. So that does trend towards Mattison playing, and it does trend towards Zamir White not playing, which makes this entire backfield really, really suspect. If Amir Abdullah is not playing on 90% of the snaps, he turns into a cone for your offense. If Alexander Mattison is playing, he's going to be limited. This is the single toughest matchup for a fantasy running back. He's going to fall immediately into the L flex category and bordering on the cone category there. All right. So nobody you want to start in that offense. If Alexander Mattison does not end up suiting up, I still think Amir Abdullah, I get it. He got a lot of work. He's running a lot of routes. He ain't scoring a touchdown in this game. He's going to go into the L flex category for me. On the flip side of things, this should be the return for Isaiah Pacheco. He got in a full practice yesterday. KC should dominate game script. What is Pacheco's role? I mean, it's up to anybody to really figure this out. I'm not going to have a better feel on whether or not Pacheco is going to go into a workhorse role or get really, really slowly eased in. I kind of think Pacheco will get a decent amount of touches, somewhere in the 8 to 10 range. I still think Kareem Hunt will probably be in the 12 to 15 range as they get a feel for Pacheco. But I think they've badly been missing that explosiveness and that tough type of running that really puts the fear into defenses, where Kareem Hunt absolutely doesn't do that type of shit. So I think, assuming Pacheco plays, which again, full practice yesterday, definitely gearing up, and the matchup is juicy as fuck against the Raiders front, against a team they're supposed to dominate the game script in, I think Kareem Hunt still falls into the strong start category, and I think Pacheco has a decent chance to score a touchdown in this one. So I'd actually put him up into the dub flex category. Moving on, we got the Chargers. We've got Atlanta. The Chargers are 1.5-point favorites, 47.5-point total. We obviously just heard the news that J.K. Dobbins will be out for this game, likely out for another game afterwards. So that leaves the backfield open for a dude like Gus Edwards, where I think he has a very, very high touchdown probability. I think he'll be in on a lot of goal line carries. So for me, he is a pretty strong start, honestly. I'd probably rather have him into the dub flex category, but I don't know that so many teams have that type of running back depth here. So I'm going to go strong start because I think his odds of scoring a touchdown are probably very, very, very high. Behind him, Hassan Haskins is a cone. We have Kamani Vidal, where there's been a lot of opinions and a lot of takes on Kamani Vidal over the last few days. I think it's really tough to get a read on what's going to happen in the backfield because Kamani Vidal obviously has a skill set that Edwards and Hassan Haskins simply don't have, and that's pass catching. That's being more that shifty runner. But he's also been a healthy scratch for the last 3 days, the last 3 games, and that kind of tells you where he sits on the pecking order and what the coaching staff thinks about him as it relates to Gus Edwards and Hassan Haskins. So I'm not projecting a big role. Maybe he catches a couple passes. Maybe he gets a few carries. But Kamani's going to end up in that cone territory for me. For Bijan Robinson's a must start. Tyler Algier honestly is going to go I don't even think I can put him into the L flex category. He is actually a cone in any matchup where we don't dominate game script here. Bijan Robinson is playing on 80% of snaps. He's seeing 80% of the opportunities. Tyler Algier comes in and bangs every once in a while, but the Chargers defense is a tough one to run against. I just don't see a world where Atlanta gets up so much that Tyler Algier becomes a real problem for them. So he's going to go into the cone category, all right? We got Indy at New England, 42.5 point total, minus 2.5 points. Indy, favorite. I actually love the over in this one. I think this is going to be a pretty damn exciting game. This is a game, if I'm in New England, I don't really have shit else going on this weekend. I'm probably trying to go to this game, and because I love you and because you love me, you're going to go to SeatGeek, all right? And you're going to use our code BDGE if you buy any tickets on there. Here's what you should do, all right? I know you're already stressing about Christmas presents. If you're looking for presents for your dad, for your brother, whatever, any man or woman, if they're big sports fans as well in your life, get tickets now to a game that y'all can go together to. Get them up front because they'll be cheaper right now, and use promo code BDGE. It'll get you 10% off any of your purchases on SeatGeek.com, okay? So go look at the games that are on New Year's weekend. Go look at the games that are in week 17, 18, maybe a first-round playoff game if your team is like that right now, all right? Do your future self a favor. Spend the money now so when you get there, you're like, oh, I didn't actually have to spend money on these gifts. It's that type of psychology out here, all right? So for Christmas, have your gifts already settled by getting tickets for your loved ones, all right? There's nothing better than an experience. So go to SeatGeek.com, use code BDGE when you check out. You're going to get 10% off any purchase, any tickets, any games, any sports, anytime. How you doing, all right? But I really like this game, and I would go to this game if I was in the Foxborough area because I think both offenses are better than both defenses. As it relates to the running backs, again, Jonathan Taylor struggled. I think a lot of that has to do with the offense continuing to have such high penalty rates and starting all their drives in 1st and 20. They're also down 3 offensive linemen, and their backup center also got hurt in this game. So they're down pretty tremendously on the offensive line, which is something to factor in for sure for Jonathan Taylor. But again, I'm just not getting cute here. He's going to have to be a must-start because New England's run defense is not good at all. I'm going to keep an eye on practice reports as it relates to the overall team, and if I'm taking props on any of those other guys in the game, because the O-line definitely needs to get its shit together. On the other side, you've got Ramondre Stevenson. You've got Antonio Gibson. Gibson's going to be an L flex for me, probably closer to the cone category. Ramondre Stevenson, I'm going to throw him into the dub flex category because he gets a ton of work. He's been really inefficient in games where they don't have good game scripts. And Gibson's getting pretty involved in the passing game. So Ramondre's been very, very tough to predict. He's much more of like a best ball running back at this point. But I still think if you have him, based on the matchup, the matchup is been tougher. Like Indy started the year as an absolute fucking shiv against running backs, but they've tightened up since they got their D tackles back, since they got, DeForest Buckner back and everything kind of situated on the defensive line. They've been a much tougher task and a much tougher team to successfully run against at a high efficiency rate. If you're just an average offensive line, if you're an average running back kind of thing, like obviously Detroit last week is going to shred them because they shred everybody. But as it relates to New England, I think Ramondre's fine. I think he's a dub flex. Moving down, Houston, Jacksonville. Houston -5 on the road, 43.5 point total here. Joe Mixon, he's a must start. Jacksonville, on the other hand, this is going to be a little bit interesting as it relates to the backfield because it does sound like Trevor Lawrence is going to play, and we don't have a read on Tank Bigsby. Bigsby, it felt like he was like kind of close to suiting up last game. Maybe not. That's going to be a big factor of what we do with Travis Etienne. And I get it. Listen, Etienne's been absolute shite this year. However, if T-Law is back, if Bigsby is out, I'm throwing Etienne into the dub flex category, and I feel relatively okay about him as my third running back in the roster, or my first or second flex here, because him and T-Law have a good chemistry, and this offense is going to be a lot better with T-Law under center, obviously, not fucking Mac Jones. If Tank plays, that makes both of them, in my opinion, an L flex, because you just really never know who's going to get the goal line work, who's going to bust a big play. If Tank plays, I am likely playing Tank over Travis Etienne. I'll say that, though. Moving down the list, we got Seattle. We've got the New York Jets. Seattle's -2 in New York, 41.5 point total. Nothing really to yap about here. Kenneth Walker's obviously a must start against this New York Jets defense. And on the flip side, you are not starting Breece Hall, which means he must be started. Moving down the list, we got Pittsburgh, Cincinnati. Pittsburgh in Cincinnati, 3-point favorites, 48.5 point total. I already took Pittsburgh in this game, and I actually took the under in this game as well. You can track any of my picks on Pick'It, on the Pick'It app. It is free to download. It's like a social betting app, basically. So if you want to track all the bets that I take for the Thanksgiving weekend, for any future weekends, or you want to track your own bets across multiple platforms, you sync your platforms, whatever, they're on there for you. I took Pittsburgh +3. I took the under of this game as well at 48.5 points. Now, Pittsburgh's got Jaylen Warren. They've got Najee Harris. I think they both fall into the dub flex category. This is a Cincinnati defense that it's kind of ebbed and flowed. Their passing defense is terrible, but their run defense has gotten a lot better, and most of it has to do with whether or not their defensive tackles are healthy. In the beginning of the year, they were without their top 2 defensive tackles for almost a month of the season, and that's when every team that they played against absolutely tore them the fuck up on the ground. Now, both of their guys are healthy. Hill, Sheldon Rankins, they are pretty much at full strength there, which provides a little bit of a tougher matchup, and I think Pittsburgh might be forced to go off a little bit of a game script here and throw the ball a little bit more. I don't know how much success they're going to have, but with that, Najee Harris, he's a dub flex. Jaylen Warren is kind of funny. Last running back video, I was literally like, Jaylen Warren, I have no confidence that he'll get you 15 PPR points. He goes out, gets exactly 15 PPR points for the first time all year. That's how fantasy works. That's how fantasy videos work. That's how fantasy analysis works. Everything that you think you know, the opposite literally happens every single time. That being said, Jaylen Warren's getting serious work. The dude is getting 14 to 16 touches per game, and I think you can reasonably, in this game environment, 48.5 points against a relatively average Cincinnati defense, if not below average. I think you can get both of them into your flex spots. I would rather, if I'm deciding between the two of them, it's Najee Harris over Jaylen Warren for me, but I feel okay about both of them. On the flip side, Chase Brown's obviously a must start for you. Moving down to Tennessee and Washington. We have Washington -5.5 points, 44.5 point total. A lot of moving parts here for Tennessee. Tony Pollard, obviously a must start in a good matchup against Washington. If Tajay Spears plays, Spears is in the cone category. Tony Pollard probably still stays in the must start category. We're not overthinking that one. Washington. So Eckler is going to be out with the concussion, very, 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 very likely, if not already ruled out. Brian Robinson dealing with a low ankle sprain. That tells me he is more likely to play than not play. And I think if he plays, he's going to take over the workhorse role. And it's a very tough matchup against Tennessee. As you can see, they're top 5, top 10 in most statistical categories against the run. They are a pass funnel defense where opposing teams are going to need to throw to really move the ball against them. I think as Jane Daniels has gotten healthier, as he's getting healthier, I think that will probably be the game script for them, which does kind of hurt Brian Robinson. But I also think there's a chance that B-Rob, with Eckler out, takes more pass-catching work, which is good for him. So B-Rob gets into the strong start category for me as long as he's playing, obviously, which means behind him, McNichols and Chris Rodriguez, if he's even active, would go right into the cone category. If B-Rob does miss this game, I think McNichols would get a decent amount of work. I don't have a lot of confidence that he gets into the end zone. I don't have a lot of confidence, actually, that if they get down to the 1 yard line, it's not Jaden Daniels or Chris Rodriguez. So the volume will likely be there. But honestly, if Robinson and Eckler miss with this matchup, I actually, in my heart of hearts, I think McNichols and Rodriguez are both going to just fall into the L flex category for me. So we're just hoping B-Rob gets onto the field. Next up, we got Arizona. We got Minnesota. Minnesota, 3.5 point favorites. At home, 45 point total. As you can see, a lot of red on the bottom of that screen, a lot of green on the top of the screen there. Minnesota, one of, if not the toughest run defenses in the NFL. They don't allow shit. James Conner is coming off a game where he didn't get shit. That being said, he's put up a phenomenal posting all year, and I don't want to have too much recency bias. He has looked a little bit sluggish recently. I won't lie, but I don't think it's really going to come at the cost of opportunities or anything like that. I think one game blip, it's going to happen with the older running back. So James Conner goes into the strong start category for me. Trey Benson would be an L flex for me. I really don't want to start him unless I'm super desperate. On the other side, you got Minnesota as the favorites. They've obviously been very, very good. This is a great matchup against Arizona. So Aaron Jones, just how good he has looked in recent weeks, getting healthier and healthier and probably at 100% now. He's a must start. Moving down to Tampa Bay and Carolina. Tampa Bay, 6 point favorites on the road, 46.5 point total. A lot of green, a lot of good matchups here. Bucky Irving, he is as close to a must start as pretty much any player right now. Bucky Irving's a must start. Rashad White's going to be a strong start against his Carolina defense in now a high, game environment total. On the flip side, Carolina, Chuba Hubbard is a must start for me. There's no reason that he won't be the bell cow going forward after what we saw from Jonathan Brooks last week. Dude got 5 snaps. So Brooks, unfortunately, talent-wise, incredible. Play-wise, he's a cone right now. Rams and the Saints. Rams, 2.5-point favorites, 49-point total in this one. The Saints are one of the worst run defenses in the NFL. So, yes, Kyren has not produced like he did in the beginning of the year. Obviously, a lot of that has to do with the fact that Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua are just taking so many targets. Kyren not being targeted in the passing game really at all anymore, which is kind of unfortunate for his upside. But I think if there's a game where we can expect a touchdown, if not multiple touchdowns for Kyren Williams, this is the one. He's a must start for me. On the flip side, you've got Alvin Kamara, also a must start for me. We're not overthinking anything in this game, and we're not going to overthink anyone in the next game either. We got Philly, we got Baltimore. This should be a really fun game. 52-point total. Baltimore's 3-point favorites. I'm actually taking Baltimore in this game. That, again, you can find on the Pickett app. Download it. Use code BDGE. Free to download, free to use the code, free to follow me. All that good sheesh. Baltimore, Derrick Henry, must start. Philly, Saquon, probably a must start, I would say at this point. Sunday Night Football. We got San Fran on the road against Buffalo. Buffalo, 7-point favorites, 44.5-point total. So both of these lines have moved in the direction that points towards Purdy not playing. I don't know that I buy into that. I think there's at least a 50-50 chance that he does suit up. Obviously, the offense is very different when he's playing versus when he is not playing. The line opened up at 6, so a point in favor of Buffalo. The line also opened up the over-under, I think, at 46.5, so the total has gone down 2 points. Again, that does lean towards them saying Purdy probably doesn't have that great of a shot of playing, but from what I've heard, from what I've read, from what I've consumed, I don't think that's correct. So if you want to jump on the San Fran bandwagon, and 7 points is still a lot of points. I know they're really banged up and the vibes are not good over there. I still think they're a relatively good team. And if Purdy does play, that number is going to jump back up to probably like 5.5 or something like that. So I think that's kind of a good bet to make right now, to be honest with you. When it comes to the running backs, James Cook for me is a must start. We saw what Josh Jacobs did against them coming off the bye. James Cook is as good as most running backs in the NFL, and there's no chance you're sitting him in this type of matchup with Nick Bosa, probably unlikely to play again. On the San Fran side of things, again, the only running back you can play is Christian McCaffrey. He's obviously been extremely non-explosive. He's not scoring touchdowns. Has not scored a touchdown since he's been back yet. So some ways he's kind of due. If you look at Buffalo, like they're a good defense and a good team, but their run D rank per PFF, 26 in the NFL. They've allowed the third most fantasy points per game to the running back position. Probably a lot of pass catching work. Probably a lot of we get up big on our opponents, and our opponents are going to run or throw the ball a lot to their running backs. And that is the type of running back that Christian McCaffrey is. All right. So McCaffrey, again, there's just no way you could sit him. So he's probably realistically a strong start. If Brandon Allen is under center, he is between strong start and dub flex. If Brock Purdy's under center, of course, he's a must start. One of these games is going to be a Christian McCaffrey comeback game, of course. We move to Monday Night Football. Cleveland, Denver. Denver, minus 5.5-point favorite. 42-point total in this one. Both defenses are very good. Cleveland's defense has kind of been overlooked this year a little bit, especially on the ground game. Number 2 run D rank per PFF, the 7th fewest fantasy points per game allowed to the running back position. And because of just the overall untrustworthiness of this backfield, you literally can never figure out who is going to be the guy to play. Javante's an L flex for me. Jalil's a cone, and Estimate's also a cone. So I would rather look anywhere else besides the Denver backfield because of the uncertainty of trying to predict who the fuck is going to have a good game back there. For Cleveland, Nick Chubb coming off of a very high carry game, 20 of 24 possible carries for Cleveland last week. Did score 2 touchdowns, but again, he's been one of the most, if not the most inefficient running back in the NFL since he has returned. The matchup is incredibly difficult. They are 5.5-point underdogs. Might need to throw the ball a bit, which is not going to be Nick Chubb's game. Kind of think Chubb will get volume, obviously. I would list him in a full week because we have no teams on bye. He is closer to it, despite coming off of his best fantasy game of the year. Probably get pushback on this. He's much closer to an L flex than he is a dub flex for me. There are a lot of options. If you're in a PPR league, you already have 2 running backs. There are a lot of wide receivers that I would prefer to Nick Chubb this week because of the full schedule, because of the full strength of games, because of the amount of options that we have at all positions. Listen, last week when there were 6 teams on bye, Chubb was in the dub flex category. He was someone that I wanted you to start despite the bad matchup against Pittsburgh. This week, I'm leaning way more towards L flex. I could see this being a 14 carry, 42-yard game, no touchdowns, where he's getting you, back to that 4, 5, 6 PPR fantasy point game that he had 3 weeks in a row prior to last week's explosion game there for you. So don't let the recency bias soak too deep into your brain, all right? Don't let the brain rot hit you. We will have more brain rot coming out either later today or maybe Thanksgiving morning. I will try to get it out later today, actually, because no one's going to watch fucking videos on Thanksgiving Day. The only videos you're watching are live videos that are on the NFL Network that happen to be NFL games, okay? So the wide receiver version of this video will go live at some point today as well. If you enjoy these videos, let me know that you do by hitting the button like this down below. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. Again, we will have the wide receiver version coming out later today. And thank you to the sponsors of our videos. Again, Underdog is going to be hitting you with free squares throughout the entire weekend, an insane amount of them. So use code BDGE when you deposit on there for a deposit bonus plus the free squares that they'll give to you. And then go check out the SeatGeek app, okay? SeatGeek.com. Promo code BDGE will get you 10% off your purchase. Go make your dad proud of you for once in your life, all right? I love you. I'm out. Smoochies.